I was curious what kind of physics you were studying, or when you began with your science career and your PhD and your studies. If you could tell me a little bit about what the field was of your focus.
I joined in a big institute, one of the biggest research institutes in India. It's called Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore. There's a wide varieties of fields and professors are available. In case you are selected as 8 or 10 members of the physics department at that year, and you will go for meeting different professors to find out which field you are going to do research. Mm-hmm. So my specialization was crystallography in masters, but somehow when I joined in Indian Institute of Science, I liked some other professor that doing research in that field, and then I joined. So I changed the field. At that time, formally that field was known as condensed matter physics. Condensed matter physics is a broad varieties of solid state physics. Solid state physics involves in solids, crystalline solids, but condensed matter physics is much bigger set, which not only solid but also condensed liquid and other liquids and everything. So it's condensed matter physics. So in that condensed matter physics, I was doing research on what they call as phase transitions.
Phase transition.
Phase transition. For example, solid ice is a solid state. Okay. When it becomes water, it's liquid. So the transition from one state to other state, from solid to liquid, is called phase transition. So I was doing research on phase transitions, like what are the things that drives a particular object to change its phase.
I see.
Okay. So, and how the different parameters, for example, if you're measuring the viscosity, you're measuring the specific heat or different properties of, say, resistance of the material, how that property of that material, when it changes its phase, changes. Obviously, the viscosity means it's the relative friction between two layers of liquid. For solid, it's extremely high. For water, it is nothing. Mm-hmm. So there is a huge change due to this transition of the same material. Mm. So it's called phase transition. So much more detailed. So I did my PhD on phase transition in binary liquids. So that's another category, but it's condensed matter.
That's but the fridge is...
When we are framing the question, normally, because it's a kind of this, the question and the answer starts forming at the same time, even before you started, in my head, honestly, because one of my primary objective to appear for this interview is to not bring either truth or telling my point of view, nothing. My main objective is, if it is available to the public, how is it going to make any difference or help them? Mm-hmm. That's like what I should tell them, what I should tell here now, so that makes certain points and relevance to what that man made a difference in my life.
Yeah.
That's my objective. Obviously, I cannot produce an U.G. Krishnamurti and talk about him and give it to you for you to verify and test. Mm-hmm. The nature doesn't permit such a thing. So, what else are the other relevant things that I understand as important that can help certain extent? For example, when I was reading U.G., I didn't meet him. I was reading U.G. Obviously, there was something going on, by reading his books, by reading about him, by reading his talks, were making some sense in me. So that, and if I think that that's something that helped me, my answers will be relevant only in that direction.
Yeah.
What now will be available in terms of videos, audios, and listening to, you will never have a chance to clarify in front of him as any individual, living individual who will try to clarify your questions. So by reading everything, the resolution of the question will be according to your own understanding and intention. Nothing else. You know, you won't find that person as a person who will tell you, this is all worse, forget about it, this is not what I'm saying. These are not going to be answered in your head when you read it.
Yeah.
So I will not go that side at all, that now that he is not there, it's all useless. That's not the case too.
Yeah.
So obviously I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
So now my question is, what is in the information that is available, that you get it from me,
Yeah.
that you create a further interest in him and then read more about it, and what are the different things that can help you to resolve your conflicts and other questions and dilemma that you have.
Well, the one thing that why I'm trying to draw out this side a little bit, because I'm making the movie somewhat for a more reflective kind of secular audience.
Sure.
And if people are sort of like, oh, Yuji's this amazing guru guy, then you don't really care what they're going to say about him.
No.
But if someone says,
because what I
I'm
feel,
a scientist
yeah,
and I'm very discerning,
Because-
then I'm going to listen. What did that person think about it?
because I am going to present it in such a way, that is what I understand, that is what to me is the beneficial aspects of the human being. It's not like matching your ideas and thinking because you belong to a particular sect or culture or ideology or philosophy. It's not like that. Mine more like a system which has an integrated demand, and how that demand is being carried out by the information that he is trying to present. Yuji. So I am always, and why is that phenomenon creates such interest in certain individuals,
Yeah.
irrespective of caste, creed, religion, culture, and social status,
Yeah.
or scientific background, religious background, artists or otherwise.
Yeah.
Because it's a very different kind of individual struggle that those informations are addressing to.
Well, that was something that I think was really interesting. One of the things that you said, I'll skip it forward a little bit
Yeah.
in your story because I want to ask you a little bit about when you were meditating, but it's what you're mentioning now, which you said you felt that there was sort of signature, and you use a really beautiful analogy, that, like the master stroke of a painter, or someone solved an equation that
Yeah.
you've been struggling with.
Mm-hmm.
And you said when you read his books, that signature felt very evident
Yeah.
in you. Could you describe that a little more? What was it what was that signature? What was evident in that signature? Like, what was resonating in what you were reading that was addressing this conflict?
I'm trying to recall the events, that because it happened many times after also, but before I met him, I'm trying to go to that
Sure.
space where I was just reading, and because of course you have to understand that our understanding or attraction towards a particular information or towards a particular subject or towards a particular object who is trying to interact with other human being, or it ought to be conditioned, because conditioning means the knowledge that is my background, the emphasis that we have in our culture where I grew up, what is a typical person and what is an extraordinary person. And these are all everything that is being taught to us, and we learn to appreciate those things. Okay? And that is how the first step towards an attraction towards an information. It has to match certain things that is you nurture in you as something that one can strive for to overcome the struggle and the problem that you have. Because I had that problem of reading J. Krishnamurti a lot, and I identified myself as because I have all these things that every single individual that I know of, I grew up, has: the ambition, the jealousy, the possessiveness, the unnecessary anger and irrelevant objectives and things like that. They are the signature of petty mind. So obviously when I started reading, the first thing about him was there was a signature of a physical transformation. Okay, I had no idea, because when I was reading J. Krishnamurti, that was the radical transformation, was one of the primary objective of an happening that can change the quality of the mind, not by gathering information or filtering information. Okay, and when I read this, that whole 2-3 pages, that's the only thing that just immediately popped up. The way he was talking, the way there was a shocking element also. The shocking element was, until then I have never seen anywhere was directly criticizing J. Krishnamurti on his territory. Mm-hmm. You know? So that was, and the authority that he was using to challenge or criticize Krishnamurti is his own physical transformation. So that was one of the signature, because you see, when you read, you can't really find out whether that's all fake or real. You know, you take whatever is written in the book at its face value, and that goes in you, and it was consistent. What he was telling and what he had gone through, they were consistent. That was the greatest signature that immediately grabbed my attention very deeply. Yet it was not strong enough that I started as such to pin him down and get him.
Yeah.
You know, it was at that time big, and that one big exposed information that I got it from 2 pages that settled down in me, and it was forgotten by the 4 years over. Mm-hmm. And it all came back when I accidentally stumbled onto Mind is a Myth in J. Krishnamurti's website. That's the most funny part. Yeah. Because after 4 years of meditation, I wanted to find out now how it reads Krishnamurti again, you know, because it made a huge impact on it changed the course of my career in a way that it took away the punch that is required to become a scientist, is an individual sense of achievement and
Becoming.
reward, becoming
Yeah.
somebody, some important member of the human society.
Yeah.
You know, so that, because that's one of the powerful sword that you have to use it to go
Yeah.
into life, and when that is not there, there's a lot goes away. I mean, of course, I have the same intellect, same everything, but that passion was not there. So when you have passion, you work for 14 hours. It doesn't make like it's hard work. But when you don't have passion, even 8 hours of intense work make you feel that you have done a lot of work. So because that aspect was resonating in me a lot more.
Yeah.
And that's the reason that, so to short, that was the signature it came, but it was, as I'm telling you honestly, that was not strong enough for me to pursue immediately. I did meditation for 4 years
Yeah.
and intense practice.
And in the meditation, and you were talking about J. Krishnamurti and his idea of radical mutation and the experiences that you had while you were meditating, would you say in that time or even before that, if you thought of it like in terms of enlightenment, or was it that you were searching in that time? What was there a goal? Okay, not to become some
The
scientist.
goal was very clear. The goal was very clear for me. It was functioning the way J. Krishnamurti laid out the signature of a big mind. Okay? It was like,
And what can you describe what that
like
image was in your mind at the
the
time?
image of like the small petty things doesn't arise in the mind at all, which was not true, you know. And so obviously at the end of, because since that was one of my measuring yardstick, I never crossed that. I was always worried about my future. I was worried about my career, worried about my financial securities, and those things were all there. Whereas I thought that since by reading Krishnamurti for 10 years didn't do these things, probably meditation would bring about something that will make me function that way. You know?
But it was not some sort of grandiose, enlightened, outside of birth and death cycle kind of thing.
No, it was
More-
not more. It was not enlightenment. What I thought is there can something happen that I will transform into a metaphormos. It's like a moth becoming a butterfly. You know, everything is there. We have all these ingredients. Some transformation is going to take me to that state where I function the way Krishnamurti was describing.
Yeah. Radical mutation.
Radical meditation. Like that is only possible. You cannot have that, the quality of the mind, by reading or doing anything. So since I thought it will be, because with awareness and understanding and going through step by step, understanding detail, reflecting on things, looking at the nature, whatever he was suggesting, you know, by doing these things it will happen. It didn't happen to me. And I didn't question then. I thought it was my shortcoming. Okay, always like that, you know. Just because I don't understand math, that doesn't mean that math is nothing. It may not be something for me, but so I didn't question that way, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then in your 4 years of meditation, was there a goal in that period for you?
That the goal gradually changed because the meditation was, I was having a lot of meditative experiences, so I thought these are the signature of I'm going in the right direction, because I came from a culture where it is implied that if you are going towards the ocean, the landscape changes, the quality of the air changes, the sound that emerges from the ocean will be heard from far, then you know you are going in the right direction. So the meditative experiences were, to me, considered as I'm going towards the right direction.
Yeah.
But
To arrive where though? Where would they take
to
you?
to where
J. Krishnamurti, or it was something new?
no, J. Krishnamurti and the goal was all same.
Yeah.
You know, it's basically non-dual. You merge with the bigger self, and which, you know, there are a lot of distinct things, whether you understand or not. My question is, how do I know that I am in that state? State means where I am functioning that way. Obviously, first thing would be, I will not have, say, jealousy. I will not have worries about future. I will not have possessiveness. I will not be thinking about my profit every time I do something. You know. So those are, but they were all there underground. Nothing happened to it. You know, they were all there.
Yeah.
The same way, no matter what, whether those are false goal, I never questioned. It was for the first time that reading Yuji made it clear that that has nothing to do with the way of your functioning appropriately. Like your hunger and sex drive and your possessiveness with certain things are most common and natural.
Yeah. That desire is a part of life.
Yeah, part of life, you know. So it's like the ocean and the wave. The life and its desire to have things that support life are one and the same thing.
And when you were, you said when you were meditating, you had, we don't have to go into
The details.
all the details,
No.
but I was just wondering if you could describe a little more what kind of the extent or what kind of experiences in the meditation. You said that they were like you were speeding through.
Yeah.
What sort of things were? It was like
It was like
hallucination or no?
I wouldn't know it's hallucination. It's a it's like it never happened before, so it was a completely new thing. It was like I'm awake and I'm suddenly taken over by a thought pattern from within, which is totally, I am in kind of merely an observer of the thought, in a sense that I am not directing them. Okay, it's as if something taken over me and was taking me to a different realm of time and space. Okay, and I'm visualizing them in dark and in eyes closed. Not in dark, my eyes were closed. It's like, and I never faced that kind of thing. So, is it a hallucination? Yeah, of course it is a hallucination. To me, the reality is when you match 5 senses and verify certain things, that's reality.
Yeah. But maybe your consciousness was slipping into some quantum sort of.
Yeah, I don't want to use that kind. No, I don't want to use that kind of word.
No.
But because my field of study is to think and reflect and deeply analyze things. So, if something like that happens, I had to read a lot about how the consciousness works. You know, so that is my the beginning of the study of the the mechanism of the brain and consciousness itself, I had to study a lot because I didn't know that kind of. It's almost like an ulterior state in a sense that where I am not directing my thought, and every moment that what's going to come was a surprise. It's like seeing for the first time a movie which you have no clue what the plot is taking to. All the elements are known. That's why you understand what's going on in the movie.
Mm.
But it was like you don't know what's next moment going to happen. It was so that shook me a lot, which I thought it's probably the beginning of a change or something.
Yeah.
Because that what never happened to you suddenly starts happening. You relate them in that way because of my meditation. Something happened to me, and as a result, I'm experiencing. Other than experiencing, what word you would say?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm experiencing such things. So, but there were that at that time, anything that is so I gave a lot of importance to meditation at that time.
And to the experiences because they were so beyond anything that you
I have ever experienced. It's like if somebody says that he is experiencing this on a regular basis, it doesn't matter. When you experience something that you have never experienced, it's something to you. So it was that kind of enormously meaningful thing to me, because what it did, whether it did good or bad, it made my focus so, it's like all my interest now came here. I have to find out what's going on, why this happened, who are those characters that appeared in my vision, what's the relevance, everything, because I am from, because I believe that even in dream, human being can made one of the greatest discoveries, even in the field of science. Niels Bohr had a dream which changed the course of human history, So, somebody created Christianity out of a vision and experience, whether it is made up or whatever, And this does happen. So, obviously, I believe in such things in a way that it's a part of the play of the human consciousness that takes human being from one to other. It's the journey that the human beings are. All the life itself, the evolution itself is a kind of journey. We don't know where it is going, but it is a kind of a dynamic equilibrium. It's moving.
Yeah.
So that way, I gave a lot of importance to the elements of the dream.
And did you have any hope about its significance, that it meant that you would stay?
No, because first thing is my interest spiked up. Tremendous interest. I have to find out,
Find out.
That something happened and I saw something. There could be something in it, what I saw. There could be some instruction, there could be some hidden signature that will lead me to the right place or right thing that will ultimately bring about a change that I'm looking for to achieve that great mind. Obviously there has to be a goal, even though I read Krishnamurti, there is no goal. Goal has to go. That's a lie.
The goal of no goal.
Yeah. So, I started meditating very seriously, very objectively, following every step the way it's, because that's my background, and And what happened is the practice they were doing, it's called Raja Yoga. It's fundamentally based on Patanjali Yoga Sutra, and which is refined and verified by the two masters of the mission. They're called Ramachandras. That's the funny thing is that two gurus of this mission were two Ramachandras. And I ended up with two Krishnamurtis. That's the most
stick
funny.
to the pairs.
It looked that way, not by my choice, It was like Krishnamurti first, then two Ramachandra, and ended up with Krishnamurti again.
What's it called where a word is spelled the same forward and backwards?
Yeah, exactly. It's go this way or go this way. Krishnamurti, Ramachandra, Ramachandra, Krishnamurti. So it happened that way. But anyway, it's to me it's still mystery, because just because I have all this experience doesn't mean that I know the meaning and significance of all these things. It's still a mystery. Even my own experience is a mystery to me. Mm-hmm. I try to explain it away by creating a model with my knowledge and background.
And what was the model?
The model it's a very different model than reincarnation, because at that time when I was meditating, the thought structure on which the whole subject is based on still believes in reincarnation and past lives and all. So, and I did feel that maybe there is past lives at that time. I'll tell you why. Because the landscape and the time that my perception of vision was going through was not modern times. It was ancient. I was going through the landscape of very ancient India and observing a lot of things that was signature of ancient India. And
like Vedic rituals?
Where Krishna grew up, like that kind of landscape. And so I'll come this to little later, because so I believe, how is it possible? I'm seeing a vivid, living movies of that landscape and all these scenarios, whereas I'm here. I was never there. So maybe at certain level of depth of your consciousness, which is layered under the conditioning, and if these conditionings are resolved, then you begin to touch upon those layers where the consciousness that came through those landscapes might just reveal itself. That was so that was the old model. And I begin to realize that this was the point it was very interesting to me, is that after reading about the possibility and impossibility of this perceptive vision, I read a lot about how the brain processes the information and how the objects are being, displayed in our consciousness and things like that, the recognition and the stimulus response and the recognition and the image making process. how these things does, and I created a different model. And then I really, even though Buddha himself was rejecting the authorities of Vedas, no God, no soul, but somehow he could not come out of the idea of reincarnation, because his dreams and visions led him to tell the stories of his previous births. So that means there is something that lives in you with certain characteristics that could be revealed when it comes to another body, like next life. Okay? So, but then I tried to put a completely new model without going through this. And I believe that Buddha didn't have this information that I have now as a scientific development of the human society, because that time we didn't know anything about brain. Mm-hmm. We only thoughts, mind, what we dream, what we envision, what we take in vision in meditative state and otherwise. And we don't have much scientific background of how the informations are structured in our brain. Okay, that's largely available now. So from that, I created a model of a kind of a software hardware. It's like our body is a dynamic hardware where it has all the capacities and all the gears and everything is there to dynamically interact with the software. The software is the culture. The culture with all its attributes, knowledge, images. Images means the information can, like if you read now a story of Atlantis, you imagine it.
Yeah.
Right?
Or even as you told me about Muhammad this morning, it's
Yes.
making a movie in my head.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that means this brain doesn't have to have it. All it has to do is to interact with the software that can create some imagery, because we have that special quality called imagination. It's the very advanced property of the new cortex, okay, which when you get information through a simple black and white line on a book, that's what the writings are, and you create that vivid images in your brain with those, because you learned it. So now what you learned, just the way your body, it was not there in the past, but it carried through the marvel of the genetics all the informations that is required to make it function the way it is functioning now. And this is going on for time immemorial, like generations and generations of genetic transfer is creating a substrate which is ready to accept the culture that is available out there. Like a boy who is born in China, it doesn't matter which boy, whether it's a Turkish boy or a Jewish boy or a Hindu boy, if he is in China, he is going to pick up the Chinese language and all its culture and its glory. Because this is an interaction of two different software. One is the information, just the way the tiger's brain is going to accept certain things that is very compatible for itself. So your language skill is extremely important to create images inside your brain, will be picked up by this brain. So need not necessarily be anything particular living has to be there in the past that is transferred into here. What all you have to have, your body is not a body just came out of nothing. It is carrying the genetic lineage and biological signature of millions of years of tinkering and intelligence. Same as the culture. And when they interact, they create a vivid imageries of the presence. Okay, so I can explain away my visions without invoking any of the past lives or anything.
Or soul or metaphysics.
Or soul or metaphysics or God or anything. Can I claim it is there? No, this is just a model. You will never know life other than creating a model and trying to fit to the model with its attributes to the signature that you are going through. That's all you can do. Okay, so, and I was almost sure if anytime you do certain things that shake up a deep structural aspect of your thinking structure, you ought to experience something very fundamental, which is different from day-to-day experience. Because that's the nature of these things, of the whole organism. And so when Buddha was meditating, he had to experience many things, which is what the culture that he was going through, the society he was in, the information that was available, and all its shake-up and all these things. And because he was really an intellectual, and that when you read, he was reflective in because he was an intellectual, he had to address those questions that came to him as an experience. Certain way he had to experience away. So he could explain it away without invoking the authorities of Vedas, without invoking soul, but another way of telling there is a soul.
Yeah.
There is something that lives through you. You know, the Tibetan Book of Death is there. You know, there is a lot of these things are there. You know, there is something survives that can come back and carry certain qualities that will change the quality of the substrate. That you become a much better person. That's the Jataka story. But that's the long story short. Because I was extremely serious about my this kind of experience. I studied so much more at that juncture of life. Like I can tell that if all my conscious effort is 100%, I only put 5% in physics and 95% in trying to understand these things.
In that 4-year period.
From then on it started.
Yeah.
You know, it started of course before, a little bit because of J. Krishnamurti, honestly.
Yeah.
The first was, of course, I was in Benares for 3-4 months when I was 21 years old. It was that time the whole thing started, because like any young man with a pure imaginative intention, like idealism is very strong in the young mind. You know, the kids will tell mom it's not fair. That guts, you know. Yeah. Even a king's son will tell his dad it's not fair. You know. So that imaginative idealism drove me in particular to bring about equanimity, justice, and so that the poor people are not exploited the way centuries of exploitation carried on. Basically, wanted to do revolution.
Yeah. And then radical revolution, inner revolution.
And
Real
then I, from there, that's an utter failure. I was a fugitive hiding in Benares by the Ganges among the sadhus and the boatmen. And there I started studying in Benares in the university, not as a student, but as an, I used to go to library. It's a funny story, like I started a soccer club there. I was so interested in soccer. So the kids used to come. I became friendly, so I was helping them doing their math and physics. So they gave me their library card. So I'll go to library and study.
That's how you went to the...
That's why, whole thing started about questioning the meaning. Then it was really, I wanted to know what I should do as a member of this human species that can justify my existence. Like what kind of activities that I should be engaged in that will make me a valid member of this society. That was the question. And so how do I know what I should do? Is it possible to know the purpose of life? Accordingly, then I will decide what should be my role. So the meaning and purpose, it's just the same thing. And where this question came from? Obviously by reading books. It's not my fundamental question. Whenever you are frustrated and cornered and nothing is working, you start reading, and then somebody tells, my boy, you have to understand the meaning and purpose of life before you jump into action.
Yeah.
That's what happened, because that time I picked up a book of Swami Vivekananda,
Oh, I see.